The Fallen King is back from last year, and the year before, and the year before, and the year before, and the year before. You guys will not believe what's coming in December. But what is the best class this year for the Fallen King? Before we begin, I've hidden codes throughout the video that you can redeem for cosmetics in-game. Moving into the testing, I'm using Glass Armor, a Vampiric and Burn Chance weapon, and the Frontal Fire pet. Starting with the Mastery classes, the Hunter is once again a very solid option for this event boss. Upgrades are disabled for the event bosses, meaning that the best classes are the ones with status effects. The Hunter has Venom and Burn Chance status effects. Make sure you animation cancel when you buff your familiar, and you use Blazing Shots as much as possible. This class is pretty easy to play, and the Hunter finished in 206 going into the S tier. The Necromancer is one of the strongest melee classes to use because of the Hexed status effect. This status effect deals very high percentage-based damage, allowing you to slowly take down the boss. On top of this, the Necromancer has a large radius on its attacks and plays very similar to ranged classes. For melee classes, consider wearing a defensive armor over glass, and you can just stand in all the mechanics and live. The Necromancer finished in 208, also going into the S tier. The Maid of Shadows, in my opinion, is now underrated and overhated. After receiving nerfs, many players are dooming and believing that this class is terrible, but for event bosses, that's just not true. The key is to not use Shadow Merge at all. Your auto attacks are decently fast and your Shadow Chains hit multiple times, allowing you to proc Vampiric and Burn Chance if you have that on your weapon. For my testing, the Maid of Shadows finished in 207, earning its spot into the S tier. Moving on to the tier 5 classes, the Shadow Blade struggles to solo this event boss. This is due to upgrades being disabled. The Shadow Blade relies on perks like Glass and Boss Bane to deal very high critical strikes, but because there are no upgrades, I used Vampiric Longswords with the Shadow Blade's fast attacks to try and proc the status effects. But it's not worth using this class. The Shadow Blade finished in 233, earning its spot in the C tier. Without upgrades, the Summoner is relatively stronger than any other class. Summons hard carry your damage. The only thing to look out for is to bait the attacks away from your summons, or else they will die. If you see an attack about to hit your summons, make sure you blow them up for extra damage. You can also animation cancel your Soul Harvest ability to deal a bit more damage. The Summoner finished in 204, going into the S tier. The Warlord is the weakest of the tier 5 classes. This class is decent in groups because you debuff the boss with your F ability, but the damage from this class is very low. This class plays pretty bad in solo play and finished in 249, going into the F tier. Moving on to the tier 4 classes, there's nothing super interesting here. The Spirit Archer is a great option if you don't have the Hunter unlocked. The Demon is an okay option, and the Dragoon is very buggy, but when played properly is pretty okay. The Spirit Archer finished in 224, Demon in 238, and Dragoon in 229. I placed the Spirit Archer into the A tier and the Demon and Dragoon into the B tier. The tier 3 classes are pretty bad. The best option is the Berserker. This class has pretty good damage and burn chance built into your ultimate, but in this boss fight, if you get your ultimate at all, it means you're going too slow. The Berserker finished in 232. The Mage of Light and Paladin are support classes, which makes them pretty terrible for solo play. Despite this, the Mage of Light finished in 225, earning its spot into the A tier. The Paladin is terrible, do not play the Paladin. This class finished in 311, going into the F tier. The tier 2 classes have a very solid lineup and are on par with the tier 5 classes. Unlike the Kraken event video, the Guardian struggled a bit, finishing in 239, going into the B tier. The Elementalist is an amazing option and finished in 211, going into the S tier. And finally, the Dual Wielder. The World Zero Discord server placed this class into the S tier for this event boss, and honestly, I don't really understand why. Yes, the class has really fast attacks, so you get lots of Vampiric and Burn Chance procs, but so do many other classes. This class doesn't really have any status effects, so I don't see how it's S tier. I tried numerous times over the span of numerous hours to optimize my run with this class, and the best I could do was 223. I placed the dual wielder into the A tier. I don't get how it's S tier. And lastly, for the tier 1 classes, the Arcane Mage in 235 going into the B tier, the Swordmaster finished in 308, and the Defender in 342, both going into the F tier. And that wraps up my tier list. If you disagree with anything, let me know. Also, the clear times have lots of room for improvement. After editing, I did another run with the Hunter in 158, so all these times can be improved. Also, I'm giving away the rest of my codes in the FizzFM Discord server. Goodbye!